Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this tutorial I want to show y'all how I made this design. Now here I'm using one of my lampwork glass beads, and I actually made two that kind of look like they might be related, whereas usually they look wildly different. But you could be using any sort of drilled round or square or any sort of briolet or shaped bead, or you could even use one of our groovy cabs like how we sell on our website. And I think this is a great way to get the look with cabochons but with the ease of wire wrapping that comes with beads. And our groovy cabs have, you can see this little groove that we've engraved all around the edge. So instead of threading our wire through the bead itself, we would actually just be taking, let's pretend like this is a full length of wire, we would just take the wire and nestle it into the groove. Now I'm demonstrating here with a groovy cap, but we are going to be working with a bead today. But we would just bring that on like so, and then twist. And then from here, all the tools and materials, by the way, will be listed down in the video description. But from here, I'm going to grip this with my bent nose pliers and just twist, making sure that those wires nestle into the groove until we don't have any sort of wiggling. And from here, we would proceed in the exact same way as what we will be over here on this piece. So I'm starting out with the wire that I'm using is 18 gauge. This is from Parawire. You can get that from parawire.com, or we actually sell some spools on our website and send them out in our craft kits and craft along kits as well. And then 26 gauge is what I'm going to be using for the weaving and the coiling. Now I have a size 8. I think you could use a size 8 or a size 6 seed bead, or any size bead that fits comfortably onto your wire. You could also use a thinner wire for your core. Like I personally don't think I'd go lower than 20 gauge, but you do you and see what happens. Also, if you only have 26 gauge, you can actually double or triple up on the thinner wire and use that in place of an 18 or 20 gauge. So I have 2 feet of our 18 gauge wire. Let me zoom out just a bit. 2 feet of it, so 24 inches. Not sure what that is in chicken nuggets, but I mean, you've got Google. And I'm just threading through our bead here. And then I am going to fold this up and around our bead. And I really like this because it does leave the bead free to move. And I'm wanting to do a mirror because these are going to be earrings. So I went to mirror this one here, and on it I had the wire between the bead and me on top. So on this one I'm having the bead farther away from me on top. And just bending those wires in like that. I am now going to, depending on the material of your bead, with my own lampwork glass I don't worry so much about using the glass to twist it, but if you're using something softer like malachite or turquoise, you may want to hold on to that cross point with your pliers and then twist the wire. Just the same motion as what you would for like a twist tie or something. And then from here, I'm going to use my round nose pliers. You could also use, if you want very consistent results, mandrel pliers, like this one here, where we can actually just hold onto the wire with our mandrel and shape those wires around. Now I'm gripping firmly, but not so firm as to bite into the wire. This is a soft copper core, and if you squeeze it too hard, you may leave plier marks. So just bringing that around. I've repositioned my pliers to make room for that wire. Just come around like that. And from here, I want to take this back wire. I'm going to zoom back out for y'all. Just around to the side so that both wires are traveling around in the same manner. I'm going to remove those mandrel pliers. So there you can see. We're working with a new camera, so I'm trying to kind of figure out the settings on it. You can either hold it with your fingers, or I really prefer to just leave my pliers in there so that my loops don't become distorted. And I'm just wrapping that around, dodging the tripod, until it gets to the base of what I'm doing. Right there. And from here, we are going to do our first layer of weaving. If you can see here on this one, I call it a 5-2 weave. So I've done 5 around one, and then 2 around both, and then 5 around one, and then 2 around both. And we'll just be repeating that. So I'm going to pull off a full arm span. You could do more if you like, of our 26 gauge wire. You could also use 24 gauge, but I personally prefer 26 or 28 gauge for my weaving. But everybody, you could ask 10 different artists what their favorite gauge of wire is, and you'll get 10 different answers, and all of them are right. So there is no right or wrong way. There's just your preference, and that is preferable. So I'm going to start with holding the wire very close to the tip because I am going to be snipping it, but I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rotations, and I'm going to smush that together. Let's see how the zoom on this camera works out. And so just tucking that together with my fingernails, I'm going to come in with my snips and just cut as close as I can. And then I'm going to be using my bent nose pliers again I'm just rotating the piece so that I can smush that little bit of tail wire down so that there's no pokey bits. And then make sure it's smushed together. And now I'm going to slide this all the way back up to our bead. Just like that. To see how we traveled all the way back up. And so now from here, I'm going to try very hard to stay in frame. I'm going to wrap once and twice. Here, loud noises for just a second. Just trying to get all of my pliers and stuff out of the way, because if there's anything for this wire to tangle on, it will. So wrapping once and twice around both of those core wires. We can scooch them a little closer, but it'll become tighter as we go. And then wrapping once. And I'm going to zoom back out again because I want you guys to be able to see what it is that I'm doing. I'm isolating this front wire with my finger and then just sliding that wire in between it, because so often new wire wrappers, or even myself, I've been wire wrapping since 2008. So at the time of recording, or at the time of you watching this, however long ago that was, that's how long I've been wire wrapping. And oftentimes my weaving wire, the thinner wire that we're currently working with, will become overworked and break on me. And so the least amount of stress that I can put on it until I'm tightening it down, the better. And I'm going to do, how many is that? 4. So once more. And again, I'm not wrenching it around and adding more bends in it. I'm just gently moving it. If I can focus all of the movement of the weaving wire just on these front couple of inches, then the wire that's getting work hardened will keep getting kind of eaten up by the design. And whereas, the rest of the wire down here, so long as the cat leaves it alone, is still nice and supple and ready to be woven. So hopefully that is helpful to you. Okay, so just smushing that down, tightening it, and to tighten, you can actually see where my nail polish is worn away. That is where my fingernail rubs against the wire as I cinch this down. So I'm holding it in my hand farther up and then just cinching, and then I'm going to wrap once and twice, and again I'm placing my fingernail there and then cinching it down, and that tightens those wires together. We can smush and position it with our fingernails some more, and then we will continue going 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then a nice solid smush, and then 1 and 2. And you can see I did it differently that way, but you can just kind of wrap. To do that motion, I just wrapped the whole thing, maintaining tension the whole time. And I like to do that as much as I can. You mercy on my fingernail. But we will continue doing this until we have reached, let's count real quick. We can count the little, so there was 1 at the beginning, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and yeah, probably 19. There's probably another one tucked underneath there. So we will want to make the same number, what was that, 19, of repetitions of this pattern on the other side, because that's going to help us to maintain as much symmetry between the two pieces as possible. Now I really like organic pieces, so I don't mind a bit there being some different variation, but any way that I can replicate to try to achieve some sort of symmetry, especially for earrings, the better. So it's if I can get the number of beads to be the same, the number of stitches to be the same, then it doesn't seem quite so chaotic as whenever you know, they don't come out exactly the same. So I'm going to keep doing this, and I'll meet you guys right back here whenever we have a full 19 repetitions of the pattern. Okay, so we have done our 19 repetitions, and if you're using a different gauge, this is 2¼ inches. So really, these are arbitrary measurements because they're based entirely on the size of your bead or the size of your cab, like just whatever you're working with, and however much space you'd like between the bead and the border or the cab and the border, that's going to determine how many repetitions you do. So, but the techniques remain the same. And also, you don't have to do something oblong. You could do like a teardrop or a leaf shape, or something more geometric. Like, you do you. Oh, and we've done, I did, that's my 19th set of 2 around both. And then I've done 1 wrap, but I actually want to do like 10. So it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And from here, we're wrapping this around. Now, my whole point of doing the wrap down was to get it so that I can have the space to stack stuff further up. So we're going to bring this around, trying to not distort anything too much. Like, I want it to be as nice and round as I can get it. And I may need to do significantly more than just 10. Yeah, let's go ahead and do 10 more, just to give us a nice full wrap. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Very cool. So now from here, we can start bending this around, and I'd like to get a full rotation. So again, it looks like, wow, I'm gonna do like 20 more. So that will have been a total of 40 coils. 2, 4, 5. Okay, so we have done the 20 more coils for a total of 40, and I'm just bringing it around the rest of the way, and I don't want things to be too close to each other, so I'm actually going to, like, I want there to be enough space. So I've lifted our wire that doesn't have any coils on it to make space for bringing this one in, and I'm still gonna do like 5 more. 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 50 coils to get around our bail. And what I'm looking for here is to just have had enough space that whenever I add a bead, it's not going to be like congested with all of those other wires that we've laid across. So from here, I am going to be using, I'm pretty sure these are a size 8 seed bead. They're about 2 or 3 millimeter. Like if this were a metal bead, it'd be about a 3 millimeter metal bead. And I'm just going to thread it onto the tip. And again, I've used the thickest wire that would fit through my beads. And I'm just bringing it right up there to where our coiling ended. I'm actually going to rotate my piece just a bit. And I'm now going to wrap this wire around that bead and do, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 coils before adding on another bead. Okay, just like that. And I want to stay consistent about where I have the wire cross over the bead. So by having, it looks like the wire exits towards the top of the piece, or rather away from me. So I'm going to have the wire exit away from me and then bring it down this way, and that way both of those wires end up kind of the same. We can still go through and like tweak them a little bit once we've done our coils, but it certainly makes, just trying for that consistency can get us better results. 2, I'm going to zoom out just a bit. 3, 4, 5, smush, and add a bead. And again, making sure the wire's exiting away from me before bringing it down over the bead, getting it nice and positioned before I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I've actually just exited that way this time to start with. And I'm threading this on there. Sometimes the beads won't all be the same size, and you could be as picky or, you know, as selective as you want about the beads. I kind of like the organic look that using these, I think these are Dynamites, the bead type, the bead brand. There are other beads like Delicas that are very, very specifically, you know, excellent consistency between the different bead sizes. 2, 3. Yep, that's 5. But I don't mind a slightly more affordable bead and also the nice organic messiness. But if I were doing like a brick stitch or something, I would totally go with the Delicas. So again, I'm going to count and see how many beads we used. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 beads. So I'm going to keep doing this until we've reached 16 beads, and then I'll meet you guys back here. And you could do where, you know, only 3 coils or 2 or even just 1 coil in between, and really start getting different results. Or you could use different sized beads, kind of, you know, gradiating them up to large and then back down again. So all sorts of different things that you can add for elements of variation in this to make it truly your own. So we've added our 16 beads, and so far, wait, did my mirror imaging even work? Don't know, I'm figuring this out. I think it did. Okay. So I am bringing this around just following the border of what we had made previously. Now also you could do layers where you've just hammered the wire. So, you know, it, instead of like how this one I have the weaving and then the beads and then the coiling, you could go like the length that you make this stem initially, you could make that very, very long and just keep adding layer after layer after layer after layer. And we may actually do a pendant tutorial with kind of showing how I would go about doing that and also stabilizing these other wires to each other. So a little bit more of like a, well, I don't necessarily consider this an absolute beginner tutorial. This is definitely, I think, something that's like an advanced beginner, if that makes sense, that you're not quite full on intermediate yet. And again, these these labels of levels are, you know, so lacking in meaning because it's, you know, level 1 for me may be completely different for level 1 for my partner or level 1 for you, or so it's just kind of a way of being like trying to identify something, but there's no like certification for you or a level 1 wire wrapper, at least not that I'm aware of. But if it's your very first time picking up beads and pliers and wire, I don't know if I would start you on this project, but if you've done a couple of projects and you're ready to move on from like basic bead links and stuff, this might be a good thing, a good project for introducing you into our next, or into more intricate, you know, weaves and stuff. So that being said, the length that you make the stem will determine how many layers of wire you can accommodate. And so I'm just going to be bringing this around. How did I do it on this one? Beep, boop. Okay, so still leaving this longer wire off to the side, I am bringing this one all the way around, back to the front even, and I am going to snip. And we may, I don't know if we'll have it available at the time of this video premiering, which if you guys are here during the premiere, hey, thank you so much for joining us. But you can see I've snipped just a little bit past, let me get this boinging wire out the way, just a little past, because I'm going to be wrapping that tail around right here. So I'm going to take that with my round nose pliers and just curl in just a little bit, so you can kind of see that piece there. We can even take it and curl in just a little bit further before taking our bent nose pliers. I'm actually going to flip this over and just insert my pliers, holding on to both sides of that wire, and then slipping my pliers. No, smushing it down. And that way we have no little pokey bits, nothing that's going to be getting snagged into our hair or clothing. We're just snugging it down. And so now I have about only a foot of wire left, of our weaving wire. And I'm going to do a very, very loose coil. Now we could have pulled off more wire and had it be a very dense coil, but I'm trying to make it match the other one, so this is how I'm doing it. And I'm just bringing that wire up from, it's attached right there, so I'm just bringing it up, and then I'm going to do a couple of loose, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can do them however loose or tight as you like, because we'll be just redistributing it later. But now I'm just pinching, making sure that the wire is traveling off at a little bit of an angle, that way it doesn't back coil on itself. And I'm just going to twirl this. And you can see how it's eating up our coiling wire, our weaving wire. Nom nom. Coil, coil, coil. And such a nice, quick, consistent way. Because as long as you don't move your fingers, all your coils will come out about the same distance apart. And I'm gonna have to take this and stretch it even further. And I like to do that by just running my fingers over it consistently. You can see I'm neglecting here at the end. That's because there's not really a whole lot to hold on to. There we go. So we've petted it out to make it a little bit more of a loose, much more loose of a coil. And now from here, we're going to shape that around. You can see I still don't have enough. So I'm going to do like how I did on this one and add a little bit more depth to the piece by having it sit maybe behind. And that still doesn't cut us enough slack. So time to straighten it back out and stretch it out a bit more. So we could have also just spliced in more wire, but I ain't about that life. So, okay, well we stretched it a bit too much. So I'm just gonna kind of push in and condense it down a bit. And if that happens, or when that happens, you may get some little weird puckers and stuff like that. What I like to do is take my bent nose pliers, set it over the troubling wire, and then just twist in the same direction as what we were coiling. It just kind of cinches it in a little bit. And from here, I am going to not wrap all the way around the front, but I'm going to do a little bit of a training bend, which what I mean by that is right where I want the wire to be landing and wrapping around on our bail, I want the bend to be like right here. So I'm going to take my pliers and add just a little bit of like a bend. And then I'm going to feed the tail of my wire through our loop until it comes and rests in that bend. And then I'm going to wrap it the rest of the way around. And I find that just really helps me to, and we can kind of smush and stuff. Oh goodness, I made it too small. That's okay. We'll figure it out. Sisters, not twins, right? On the earrings. I'm gonna snip right here. Let me zoom in so that you can see how far we're snipping. Just give it a nice cut. Taking my round nose pliers and grabbing and just feeding that end in as much as I can before getting my bent nose and angling that wire so that whenever I smush it, it goes in where I want it to. And then we can come in, kind of smush a bit from the other side, and there we have, this could be an earring, this could be a pendant, this could be a charm on a sun catcher. If you have translucent beads, I feel like make more of an impact. But yeah, little faceted crystals would be so cool for casting little rainbows. Now from here, we could use our 18 gauge. I personally have my ears gauged up to an 18 gauge wire. That way, because I can go sometimes long periods of time without wearing earrings. So it keeps my ears from closing up as much. But most ear wires that I've come across are like a 20 or 22 gauge. So use whichever kind of wire you prefer. Or if you want to use niobium or surgical steel ear hooks, I really recommend Fire Mountain Gems and the Ring Lord for sourcing those. Very high quality, and it's more about the transparency of the company being honest about what the materials are made out of. When I buy something from Fire Mountain Gems and they say that it's sterling silver or they say that it's surgical or stainless steel, I trust them. Whenever I buy something from the Ring Lord and they say that it's niobium or they say that it's sterling or pure silver, I trust them. Whenever I buy something off of maybe Amazon or AliExpress and they just say plated alloy, I'm like, is it lead free? Is it like, I don't know. So those are two companies that throughout my entire career I have very consistently purchased from. This isn't sponsored in any way, and I've had very consistent good results. I've been happy, and more importantly, my customers have been happy, because if I'm getting I get some ear hooks that were sold to me as sterling silver, and I sell them to my customers and clients as sterling silver, but they've got severe metal allergies and something's going sideways. And it turns out that it wasn't actually sterling silver, which is like silver with like copper and some other stuff in it. I'm not a chemist, I just make stuff. So, that's something we get a lot of questions about, is how do you know what you're getting is what you're getting. And I think the hardest part is just finding companies that are actually transparent about what's in them. And the only person who can do the research for that and make that decision is you. So also Rio Grande is very, very good. There are some sellers on Amazon that I'm like, okay, yeah, like even Panda Hall is pretty transparent about like, oh yeah, this is chock full of nickel. So, and that's why I really use a lot of Parawire, is because their enameling I can wear even with my severe metal allergies. I can wear enameled Parawire. It doesn't turn my skin green. It doesn't irritate my ears. Like it holds up wonderfully. So I hope that that's helpful to you guys. I just got pliers and mandrels rolling. So I've cut my wires to the same length. These are about 2.25, maybe a little bit longer, inches long. And I'm going to use the 4mm section of my mandrel pliers. I'm going to do these just one at a time. And you could hammer your wire after shaping it to make it a little sturdier. I don't find that as necessary on the 18 gauge, and honestly I prefer the feel of round wire in my ears to flattened wire, but that's just me. And that's the great part about making your own jewelry, is you can make it truly and exactly the way that you want. And then I'm just using the thickest part of my mandrel pliers to come through and make a loop. And I want to try to make that loop going in the opposite direction so that it's a little bit of an S. I don't know the exact physics behind it, but I do think it's a little bit more stable than if you just have it to where, both of the, it's more like a C than an S. You could leave the tail wire on your hooks, but I kind of prefer to first off make sure that they're actually lined up. And that can be helpful to just bring them both down to the same point, like that same shape. The entry and exit points of where your wire is sitting can make a huge difference in the symmetry of a piece. Okay, so now we're going to come up here, and I think I'm actually going to snip mine to where they're just a little right there. There we go. To keep your wires from flying, I usually just put my finger over it or hold it. And from here you could use, there's something called a burr cup that I think I have one somewhere, but I keep losing it. But I always have this dish of files with me, just over here in my metalworking area. And so I really like to come through, and I find it works a little bit more efficiently than a burr cup anyways, because like, I guess, I don't know if it was just not a very good burr cup or what, but it didn't really seem to do anything. Whereas these files, you can just come through. Excuse me. You can just come through, and my goal here is to make this perfectly rounded and no pokey spots, so that whenever it goes into your ear, it's not poking or snagging on anything. You could also, if you're using like silver or stainless or surgical steel, you could just tumble your ear wires in like a rotary tumbler with some stainless steel shot and sunshine burnishing compound. We have a page on our website at backtoearthcreations.com that is our curated toolkit, and all of the different tools. Like if you hear me talking about tumbling and you're like, man, what kind of tumbler? If you go to that website, there's a page, I think it's actually our chainmail page, that has all of the different tools and materials that we have in our personal setup for, like, that is what we use for our business, and it gets good enough results that we'd recommend it. Like, if we could go back in time to, younger us and be like, hey, use this instead of that. That's what our curated toolkit is. So we can't go back in time, but we can help y'all, and hopefully that is helpful to you. But it keeps us from having like 700 links down in the video description. So we've gone ahead and rounded those down. And your fingers will often tell more than what, I know for me, my fingers tell more than my eyes do about if I got something good. But nothing tells as much as zoomed in on a super zoom in camera. And so you can go through, and this is probably one of the most work intensive parts of it for such a small detail, but man, you notice if there's something pokey going into your ears. Yeah, and this was achieved with just a flat file. You could also use like an emery board, like how would you would use for your fingernails. I prefer the metal ones because it holds up better, I think, than the kind of sandy grit emery boards. So I'm just going to take this and open, and I'm hoping that I made my loop, and I did, big enough to accommodate both layers of wire. And then I'll just bring that to, and it would have been before even filing is whenever I would have hammered my ear hooks. Then we'll just add them on. You could use some silicone ear backs to keep them from falling out of your ears. Or you could have bought like some kidney style ear hooks that have like the little hook on them. But I really like these. You could even get like posts and have them be post earrings. It's entirely up to your own fashion and style and preference. But this is how I make these earrings. I really, really hope that this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. Or you can contact us at our website, backtoearthcreations.com. You can also sign up for our newsletter. And if you're interested in supporting the creation of more free tutorials, as well as getting exclusive coupons and monthly crafty boxes, and all sorts of different things, be sure to check out our Craft Along Club, because that and viewers like you is what keeps our channel going, and we appreciate y'all tremendously. So until next time, y'all, happy crafting. Mwah. Bye.